our characters, Chloe and Jack, from the very opening scenes when they're in the car, their relationship is like very tense. And then they meet the other couple, Wendy and Wayne, and it really throws that tension into relief because they're so, they're so friendly and like easy to they get along with each other really well, Wendy and Wayne do. And from that interaction, I was like, oh, these people should not be together. Like, what are they going to get up to? The older couple is like, easier to be around, like I said. So my question is, how did you set about cultivating that tension that immediately sets off that uh-oh feeling in one couple? And then how did you juxtapose that with Wendy and Wayne? Because like it's very tense and then it becomes even more tense when you see like the control group
Yeah,
almost,
in like a
how'd you
different
do that?
way.
Yeah, in a different way, for sure.
Well, I like it started with that shot. I mean, right after the airplane, and they're in
Mhm.
the car, and she's looking at the palm trees in Miami and how awesome it is, and then she looks over at her partner, and he's asleep. And there's
Yeah,
that shot of her letting go of his hand, which is kind of indicative of everything that is to come.
right.
Um, and then Wendy and Wayne are kind of like a fun. They're both I mean, they're both kind of an example of because I always in talking to both Janet and Christian who played Wendy and Wayne,
Mhm.
like it's both their second relationships. And so it's like they've kind of said fuck it in a weird, I don't know if I can swear, but
Yeah, of course you
in a
can.
weird way. They're just like,
How could you not? We're
it's
talking
kind of
about
like that
this.
second, like they've gone through marriages and then
Mhm.
they've gotten the divorce. And I think sometimes that second marriage, I'm very happy with my marriage first, but I'm just saying,
Sure.
like, I've noticed some people go into that second relationship and like they're able to set ground rules and they're very clear about what each other wants. And in that respect, it kind of works really good or really well.
Yeah.
But they're also kind of a cautionary tale for Chloe because Chloe is sort of at an age where she wants to settle down. And it's like, unlike men, I think women, when they're getting close to 40, it's like get serious time because
Well,
if
it
you're a
has to
woman who
be.
wants a child, there's
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
finite amount of time. And that was really a big part of casting Kim and casting like an actress that age rather
Hmm.
than there was some pressure to cast younger.
Hmm.
But, a 24-year-old, that pressure's not as meaningful.
Yeah, it's not as real. Not yet.
Yeah, I mean, you've
Yeah.
got another 20 years to figure it
Right.
out. Whereas,
Totally.
I think, and I personally know, some women who have been with the same guy and it's like seemingly a great relationship. And then they get to like 36 years old and it's like, all right, let's do this. And the guy's like, well, I don't want kids. And then it's like, well, what did you waste my time for?
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of like a very interesting dynamic that is not really in many movies.
Yeah.
And it's like a brutal kind of reality thing that people have to face and deal with. So for me, that was like really part of that relationship and building that early. And so that tension around like that's always in the back of Chloe's mind.
Mhm.
And it's like she wants to like move forward and this anchor is not letting her, but
Yeah.
she's committed so much of her life to this anchor that she's pulling as hard as she can to drag him around, right? And I think we
Yeah.
do that no matter what the situation is in some relationships. So
Yeah. I definitely was feeling that too because it's like you have to make a decision, right? A woman has to make a
yeah.
decision. Like there's no like turning back the clock on that. And it definitely felt like they had been together for a long time and that wasn't a point of tension before. And then when she had I think this isn't in the beginning, but if it's a spoiler, we can always, go back and edit it out. But
I don't
um
think this movie suffers from spoilers.
yeah, I mean, right. It's very interesting to see the way things happen,
Yeah.
if that makes sense, like the way it
Yeah.
unfolds, in addition to what happens. But yeah, she lost the baby. And it
Mhm.
seems like he was like, well, I mean, I guess we're just gonna keep doing what we've always been doing then. And it seemed like that was kind of her moment of being like, oh no, I have to make this happen if I want it,
Yeah.
So um yeah, so there's that point of tension. And then Wendy and Wayne, who are, like you said, like it seems like they had the relationship where they were like, well, this is what I don't want. So let me,
Yeah.
make some better choices. And they seemed so happy because they were, I guess, I mean, it felt like they were clear with their expectations up front, unlike our protagonist
Yeah.
group who
I mean,
was
there
like
is some
changed their mind. Yeah,
deception revealed later,
of course.
but not, yeah. So,
Yeah. Okay. So one of the scariest moments for me, or maybe not the scariest, but the first scary where
yeah.
I was like, oh shit, this is, oh God. Um, it's shortly after they eat the peyote, and then they're like, "Oh, it's not working. Let's eat twice as much immediately." Which I don't think that's how drugs work recreationally, because that's not how they work like with Advil. Like it takes a second to like
Yeah.
kick in.
I mean,
But
there's recreational moments where people do dumb things like that.
sure, I mean for sure. Um, but yeah, so Chloe says something to the effect of she's starting to feel weird, right? And he
Mhm.
says that's normal. And then she
Yeah.
says something else, and he says again in the exact same tone, that's normal. But he's like in a different part of the
Yeah.
room. And it maybe is even like this, it sounds like it could be the same sound piece used again. But it's
I
like,
think it might be.
it was so cool that I was just immediately like, oh, it's going down. Like something is about to go down. And it just seemed so intentionally jarring that I wanted you to, as deep as you can go, like nerd as far out as far as like from the script to the blocking to the direction to the cutting. Like, how did you achieve that where it felt so intentionally crazy, I guess? Because sometimes
Yeah.
it can not land. This one did land like big time. So how did you make that happen? I guess
I
that's my
mean,
question.
the goal was twofold. The goal was, if you've taken a lot of psychedelics, to make you recall that feeling.
Hmm.
And then if you've never taken psychedelics, to sort of give you an idea of what that, put the audience in that perspective. And the fun thing is if you see it in a theater with the 5.1, that last, it's normal. Cause I think he says it's normal 4 or 5 times. And the
Hmm.
very last one, it comes from the rear left speaker. And it always kind
Yeah.
of throws the audience off in a fun way.
Yeah.
Everyone looks, and then the camera switches and he's somehow behind her when she's having this conversation in front. And so,
Love that. I,
yeah,
I
the
screened
goal
it at
was,
home, so I didn't get that experience,
yeah,
but I
in
love hearing
headphones, I
about it
think it
though.
works too. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Um, I think I don't know. But the goal was there that to make the audience feel as stoned as they are and sort of ease it in. And so to do that, I played with continuity, which I
Hmm.
think people inherently understand continuity,
Hmm.
movie watchers, and when it
Right.
feels wrong, and so intentionally making it wrong because it's like she's looking to camera right, he's talking, and then
Hmm.
it comes from behind, she turns around and he's there. We didn't see how she got there, and then she comes around camera and she's wearing a completely different top, and talking
Yeah.
nonsense, um, even more nonsense because they never really answer each other's questions. They always talk
Mm-mm.
whatever they want. And then she opens, and the scene starts. Really, that scene starts with her turning herself upside down,
Hmm.
indicating that her life and your life is about to become upside down as their
Hmm.
interactions happen. And then she closes the sunlight out of the room. And when she's moving into this stone situation, opens the curtains and it's night, and they realize 11 hours have gone by,
Yeah.
and you, the audience member, didn't notice it, and it's played out continuously like one scene. And it was a challenge because explaining to people what I wanted to do was the hardest part about that.
Yeah.
My AD was always making fun of me because it was called scene 19, but scene 19 was like 30 pages long because it extended over technically 2 days.
Right.
um so we had to break it in. That day and night switch made it scene 19 and 20, um just for ease of shooting.
Yeah,
um
that makes sense.
and creating, like, explaining, getting specific with Scott, the cinematographer, um my wife who produced it, um
Cool.
and the people doing the props with the food and stuff, and explaining that
Yeah.
everything had to happen off camera because it's there and it's not there. um that was the hardest part, is like, because I had it in my head and I'd written it, and actually my wife and I shot a short film version of it
Okay.
earlier called The Anniversary Party. It also played at Popcorn Frights like during the pandemic, so it was only live streamed. It was
Mm.
that year that they did night stream or whatever. But that's how I kind of practiced it, and I kind of figured it out. I mean, it works in the short, it works better in the feature, um because I had more time and the
Hmm.
scene is actually stretched out instead of compressed. But that
Hmm.
kind of stuff is like super fun, like playing with continuity, playing with, and we chose our weird aspect ratio where I think 65% of the screen is black because it's so narrow and wide,
Hmm.
is to hide stuff that's going on in the room, like what's going on that table. Because literally when
Right.
the camera moves, I mean, there's a team of people who are coming in, throwing food there and setting it up and then disappearing before the camera tilts down and all that kind of fun stuff. That's where I geek out. I love camera stuff, and I love kind of like messing with expectations,
Uh-huh.
which I think the film also does as well.
Yeah.
Just, but on every level, I like to do it.
Yeah, I just speaking more on that scene when I don't remember if it was like a pan down or just like a I can't remember exactly the shot difference, like how it moved, but when we saw like those plates full of
Yeah.
bones, I was like, "Oh God, like they're going to be like just eating that much meat alone will send you into like a psychiatric like a psychedelic state." So, that was like it escalated, I think, really quickly. But
Yeah.
it was really cool. Thank you for going there.
Well, I needed like a fun way to do it, and I feel like it's a very complicated thing to have lead characters who do what they do. And so
Mhm.
to follow them linear would be a very tough challenge to like get the
Yeah.
audience to buy in, where it's like if they take these drugs, they're kind of like normal people, and then they order room service, it never comes, and then they look down and it's like, oh, it came along with like 10 other room service orders clearly that we never witnessed. And then it's like we're feeling as disorientated as they are. And I
Mhm.
think that kind of gives us the freedom to forgive their actions in a weird way.
Yeah. I mean, who among us has not had that night where you were like, I mean, I have some memory of it. Like I remember, and then
Oh,
someone will tell
just,
you something you did, and you're like, no, that wasn't me. Like you're
or
thinking
like,
of someone else.
I
You
don't
know?
remember coming home last night.
Yeah, or like how did I end up at home? Like how literally how did I get here? And I
Yeah.
think that they have that moment and it comes across really well. And I've also been like the sort of spirit guide where someone is having a conversation with someone like off screen, where it's like,
Yeah.
who are you talking to? Do you need me for this
Yeah.
conversation? So I think that it feels really real and also like a almost inciting incident. So thank you for going deep
Good. Thank
for
you.
that.
That was
Um,
it's good to be appreciated.
Oh, I loved that part. I was like, I was like, I feel like I was gonna miss something because they were missing everything,
Yeah.
so it made me very focused on the film, which is really cool.
It's
So
fun to play and trick the audience in a way with
yeah, you tricked me
like
in
a
a good way. Yeah.
dishonest, yeah, like as a dishonest narrator, because then it theoretically puts the viewer in a position where they don't know from that moment forward. You really don't know what's going to happen next because you don't know what happened,
Right. Like you
right? And
don't
then
know.
it's
There's no
that
set.
weird
Yeah.
title that
Yeah.
makes you go like, what else am I missing?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so sort of on that note of like the cinematography, sort of. A lot of the violence, like the actual, not the gore, but like the violent parts happen like just out of frame. Um, which I think was I mean, I found it very effective because I feel like it's going to be worse in my imagination, right? Than anything I could see. But like, how did you make that decision to do that in some of those moments? Like one in particular is when we're watching from kind of the hallway looking into the bathroom and
Hmm.
she's in the tub. So like or like she's leaning over the tub,
Right.
right? So that's just one. If that's not the one you want to talk about, that's fine. But that's the one that stuck with me, I think.
Well, I mean, there's a few reasons.
Okay.
One, I love the idea of framing her in that horizontal frame of the doorway, which
Mm-hmm.
kind of compresses her as though she's kind of in some type of a prison
Yeah.
of her own making. That it also, practically speaking, it also serves to hide the like 6'1" or whatever, 5'10", whatever he is, cameraman, and and the 6 foot or 5'10", whatever he was, effects guy, who are both lying on top of each other in the tub with a camera and a squirt bottle of blood while she's sawing
Yeah.
away. And
That's so cool.
yeah. So there's a couple of things because that one where she breaks it, they're both in the tub on top of each other, and that kind of thing. I mean, so I I mean, I don't only use, I mean, I only have used practical effects and I
Okay.
plan on only using practical effects for most of my career. Unless someone can make an argument not to. I know Walking Dead, I think did a really good job of combining CG with practical really
Hmm.
effectively, I thought.
Me too.
Um, a lot of times when you have that budget, it can be done well. But when you
Hmm.
have my budget, I don't think it can. and, and I do think that it kind of takes you out of the movie when you see this thing that's not lit properly or the blood is just clearly not there.
Hmm. I agree.
Um, so it's a pain in the butt to have people hiding in tubs and under counters and squirt bottles and wires everywhere and like tubes going around. But I think it's like, even if it's even if it fails, it feels organic and we buy it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like, I mean, and even at the one point where there's a neck biting,
Hmm.
and I know the actor, theoretically at that point his arm is supposed to be broken,
Hmm.
but when she goes in and rips his neck out, you're shooting that up to that point, and then you cut and you go and tube him up and like cover him with a thing, and then it's like then go back into that moment, and then there's a
Okay.
dude with a fire extinguisher that blows blood through everything, and this
I
actor,
didn't know that. This was my next question, so
oh my
I'm
god,
glad that
yeah,
it's
it's it's
going
a
into
whole
it.
thing, it's the whole thing. And that's why you'll see a lot of special effects are shot in extreme close up to hide all that paraphernalia, and I'm one of these idiots that shoots them wide because I like to see, I mean, the blood is always cool. The blood and whatever is fun, but I think the reaction in the actor's eyes is telling the story more than the blood.
Hmm.
And this actor, when she does it, the blood starts pouring out, and he reached up and grabbed it like a human would. And both like the effects guy and I like screamed like because you want the blood stream in the movie. But I ended up, we did it take twice to fix that. But in post, I ended up using that first post because it felt sort of just organic
Hmm.
as something someone would do, and it had also had the effect of like splashing the blood off his hand all over him, and it actually increased the blood, which was great on one hand because it looked awesome, and but he also reached
Good.
up with his broken hand, so you'll see there's a digital zoom in
Mm,
that, and that's to hide his broken arm coming up. But I love
mm,
it too because it kind of recalls like the 70s horror movies where they push in on 16 mil film and it gets all grainy and weird. And I just, and then I did a little kind of ode to John Carpenter there in the score. So it was like, it all just kind of worked.
yeah.
But the bad part about shooting wide and doing all the blood is that at the end of the shoot, the hotel where you shoot at doesn't want a hotel room with blood stains all over the
Right.
carpet. So I had to devote a good portion of the budget to replacing a carpet where we shot.
Mhm.
So,
I feel like, I mean, I feel like that was worth it. I don't know,
oh
like
yeah,
it
it's always
appears
worth
to
it.
have been worth it to be
I
able to make a
lost,
mess.
yeah, I lost the rights for what I wanted to be the opening theme song. So
Mm.
that was the cost. But
Well, I mean, I really enjoyed that opening theme song. Like I was like,
no,
pause
it was
it. I
great.
have to
Yeah.
Shazam this right quick. So yeah, I liked it a
Yeah,
lot.
no, I mean, well, it was like there's two other occasions where I use Nero's, a remix of Nero's Must Be the Feeling.
Mhm.
I think it's the club scene when they first go, and then at the very end, I used Delta Heavy's remix and Flux Pavilion's remix. And so there was like, I wanted like the opening to start with the non-remixed, like Nero's actual track, and then it would recall the story. But you know,
That's
music
pretty
costs
great.
money, and we didn't have money,
It's
so
true. Yeah,
I was lucky to get the two tracks I got.
it felt good, I think.
Yeah, great.
It's interesting to though to hear what the original plan was and how like the detour made a big difference, like in a good way. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I think if you're working with no budget, you kind of, what I've learned is to control your compromises. And so to come up with your own compromises before you're forced into them. So you're not
Mm,
making snap decisions.
that's a really good way of looking at like everything. So
Yeah.
that's a good outlook. Um, I have another question that's another sort of deep cut. Um, there's a moment in maybe Act 4, and I won't go into the details of the plot here, but I'm going to try to phrase it in a way where anyone watching this, like if they've seen it, they'll know. And if they haven't seen it, it won't like wreck any suspense or anything. But okay, so Jack answers the hotel room door and Chloe's in the opposite corner.
Right.
Right.
That's one of my favorite scenes.
It's beautiful. The lighting is incredible and it feels like a hotel, but scary.
Hmm.
Like it has like that harsh lighting, but muted. I mean, not
Yeah.
I feel like hotel rooms have harsh lighting, but it's like sideways lighting. I don't
Yeah.
so I had that, but it was also like amplified, I think. And she has a really stark silhouette behind her.
Yeah.
And then the shadow gradually starts acting of its own volition. Like
Yeah.
it is her silhouette and then it's doing its own thing and then it's on the opposite side talking to her.
Yeah.
Um how did you pace that so that it's sneaky and then it also feels like a dream sequence? How'd you do that?
If I had to give you some science answer, I don't know.
No, you
Um,
don't. I
I
wouldn't
just kind of
understand it if
felt it
you
out, and
did.
it's It's funny, like this movie more than my last one, anyways, was like I really kind of relaxed. And I mean, I lucky because I had Kim, and Kim was just amazing to work with. And she and I both just were on the same page 100%. And then I had my wife producing, so she had my back the whole way. And then Scott, my cinematographer, was great. And Rogan, who plays Jack, was also like just on the same page. We were all on the same page. So it was able to like just relax and stop thinking and just feeling. And so it was really about everything we did. And this especially was just, let's just feel it. And then luckily I've edited a lot. So in my head, I'm always editing.
Hmm.
And so we had an idea, but that was one thing that I wrote, and I thought there's no way we're gonna pull off this shadow thing because it should be animated and it won't look good. And how do we figure it out? And then Scott and I, the day before we shot it, were in that room, and there's some pretty ugly pictures of me holding a lamp at my face with very harsh, awful lighting. Um, and
For
we
to
figured it
project
out.
the silhouette, you mean? Like,
Yeah, and so
okay.
really, like the way it was shot was just we shot her sitting against the wall, and you'll see we put her in the corner so that we could just slice it down the middle, and then we shot her shadow on the other side, and then in post we just put the images together. And I just kind of let everything happen organically, and that thing where she brings her finger up was just, it just happened, and it happened to kind of work and coincide with each other. So that was that. But the hard part of that scene, I mean, that was difficult enough, but the fact is that's only part of the scene. And on the other side of
Right.
the room, there's this crazy scene
Hmm.
where Jack is naked and answers the door and is clearly lost his mind. And what is it? Wendy is just kind of there, and she like walks into the room despite any kind of logic why she would, to like make sure that Chloe is okay, right?
Hmm.
And there's kind of like a cool moment there because that's twice that sort of uh Wendy is looking out for Chloe.
Hmm.
At first with the party scene, she keeps her secret, and then that
Hmm.
part she walks in to make sure she's okay, and then gets herself embroiled in something she probably shouldn't have walked into. But that's kind of the fun of Wendy, and I love the way Janet sort of played her, sort of like so believably comical, and
Hmm.
like I don't know, it was really fun because I don't know, Janet just showed up and gave me that character. Because I hadn't had an idea, but I didn't have that idea, but that was like better than anything I could have imagined. So that was great. But so yeah, that was that scene is, and that's one of my favorite scenes for all of those reasons, and also the score in that scene I kind of love as well. So
Great. I just have two more questions, I
yeah.
think. Is there anything that I should ask you about that I haven't asked you about, or like anything that you want to talk about that you like people haven't asked you yet? I know you've been, like you said, doing interviews back to back, or
Yeah,
just that anything hasn't like that hasn't hit yet that you want to share?
that's such a hard question.
Well, we can skip it. I didn't mean to
How do I
like I
think? I don't know. No, I mean, I love talking about everything about the film. I mean, it was such a fun process to build this film. Grueling to be pitching it and getting
Mhm.
nowhere for a long time. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I would say like if you're out there pitching a film and 8 years go by, don't give up because sometimes it might happen. Um, but pitching and then staying true to it, because I think this film, maybe more so than a lot, needed a lot of freedom in the production. And there were opportunities to sort of make it, like I said, with younger actresses and sexing it up and sort of like um it's a different film
Mhm.
rather than what this is, because this kind of became a relationship story, and it sort of has this like feminist theme of her finding herself and finding her agency, where I don't think that's the film that the other people who wanted to finance it
Mhm.
wanted to make. So I was lucky to get in a situation where I had executive producers who fully backed my idea, and having my wife be able to be on set producing it and looking out for it, and she was very protective of the story itself, and had given me
Cool.
notes on the script for years, of course. Um,
That's
and
awesome.
so, yeah, I mean, that's like find your situation, because when you
Yeah.
walk into the wrong situation and try to make your film, especially sort of like a unique,
Mhm.
small personal film, it sucks to like compromise in those ways.
Yeah.
Compromise over the budget, don't compromise creatively.
Right. Compromise with yourself, like you said, right?
Yeah, or you
Yeah.
control your compromises. That's my
Control your compromises.
yeah.
Yeah. I like that. And then my last question is just, can you tell us what you're going to be working on next?
I wish I could,
Okay. Is a secret.
tangibly.
Okay.
No, it's not even secret. It's just I don't have I don't know. I've got money problems, as all movies do.
Yeah.
No, I've got a film called She Came Knocking
Okay.
that I'm pitching. I'm trying to land an actress for that will bring financing to the table. You can kind of Google, you can Google, there's a short film called She Came Knocking that I made with an actress called Kimberly Sue Murray. Um, and I've written a feature version of that, sort of expands and changes it a bit, but it's the same thing. So that is with a producer, and we're trying to attach an actress that will bring financing.
Cool.
I have another film called Crystal that I'm talking to producers with right now, and that one we're hoping to shoot. It's more of an action thriller.
Okay.
And then I've got two other smaller movies that I'm pushing. I got scripts. It's
So when
just
you said you
finding.
weren't sure, it wasn't that you weren't sure. It was like you don't know which one's going to happen first. Is that
Yeah,
kind of
or
where you're at?
and
Okay.
with this business, if anything will happen first. That's the
It feels like a real Schrodinger's cat type of thing. Like it didn't happen until it happened, and it's not happening
it's
until it has already
just
happened.
yeah, I don't believe until I'm on set with everything happening, it's not real. Like, and you can't like I you just can't you can't get your hopes up because
Mhm.
like, I've been involved in films that were like, oh, we're going to shoot in 2 months or 2 weeks, and then the investor is getting a divorce and now you don't have any money and we're done. Or even Do Not Disturb was fairly well along to shoot in Mallorca, um like, and then COVID hit and that
Mhm.
just made it impossible. So, you know dreams die more often than they come true. That's my American fairy tale for you.
Oh man, it doesn't feel like this dream died. I
No,
mean,
but that's it. Some dream it's worth it. It just makes the pushing, and it makes when it happens even more special. And I think
mhm,
that's kind of what I learned on this one, was to enjoy the process. And like, even we had one day on our last day where we got shut down because one of the crew members got COVID. So we
mhm.
had to test everyone and make sure no one else had COVID and figure out how to proceed. And I lost 4 hours of my shoot. And it was like, even that was like fine. Like, it's fun to be on set and it's fun to make movies. It's fun to like wake up at 6 in the morning and know that, by the end of the day, you're going to have accomplished something. And even if it's not exactly what you wanted to accomplish, it's something. And you're a step closer to being done. I don't know. There's something, being on set is it's good. And I think it's also the way my mind works, because when life is slow, I'm useless. But when, like, 20, 30 people are asking me questions and we're moving forward, I love, like, that's where I'm alive. So
That's awesome. Okay, so last thing, I
yeah,
promise,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
I'll let you
I'm
go.
in no rush.
Um, where can we find those shorts? And then where is the best place to watch Do Not Disturb?
Well, the short, I think I've got it. There's no password on it on my Vimeo channel. If you
Okay.
Google She Came Knocking John Ainslie Vimeo, I'm sure it'll pop up.
Okay.
Um, there's also a streamer called Red Coral that has my shorts on it as well.
Okay. Okay, good.
Um,
I'll find them and I'll link them so that anyone watching this can
cool.
go straight
Um,
from here to there.
yeah, and if you need links, I can send them to you.
Okay.
And then Do Not Disturb will be, let me look this up. It's VOD tomorrow,
Okay.
which I'm not exactly sure. Like, I think that's Amazon, Apple. I don't exactly know what VOD is,
Okay.
but
It changes all the time too. So
I know, right?
yeah,
And we're hoping,
right.
I mean, I would love it if it got onto Shutter at some point. But I don't know if it will. So I don't even know why I said that. But I'm looking at the theaters. It's
Because
playing in,
you speak it into existence. Like who knows?
exactly, maybe
Yeah.
they'll hear this. No,
Maybe they will.
I don't know where the theaters are. But there's what is it? The Brooklyn Art House Theater.
Okay.
And what was the other, in Beverly Hills, there's a theater too.
Cool.
It's gonna be screening it. So yeah.
Awesome.
And
Well,
then yeah, it'll be around. It'll probably
good.
be on like IPTV in a few months.
That's great. It
Yeah.
gets more eyeballs. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I had for us. And I'm really grateful that you came to talk to me about your movie. I hope it, you know, is super successful, I don't see why I wouldn't be. It's awesome.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and that's what I said about like learning to enjoy the process, because the process is what you get. And if you get your joy in making the movie, the joy of its success is secondary, because it's
Bonus.
completely out
Yeah.
of your control. And like,
Right.
we all know great movies that get nowhere, and
True.
bad movies that do seemingly amazing, and there's no rhyme
True.
or reason to it sometimes. So as much as I love the amazing reviews I get, there's going to be some bad ones, and you kind of like have to keep it in check and stay
Mhm.
level headed.